let's get into the big topic of open source, something that we actually say at Red Hat.
We have a
This is so
we
awesome.
are an open culture that believes in the importance of
What is that process that a developer, or let's say
as the Kubernetes ecosystem really boomed?
Hello and welcome to this week's Ask an OpenShift Admin office hours, soon to be the Ask an OpenShift Expert office hours, I will point out. We were just talking about that, Jonny.
Yes.
Hello and welcome to this week. Thank you for joining us today. We are very happy that you have decided to join us very late into January of the new year. We had a longer than expected hiatus, if you will. We expected to come back, the second week of January, I think, Jonny? And
Yes.
combination of life has gotten in the way consistently, but we are very happy to be back. I'm excited to be back. I've missed being on the stream. It feels we've been doing this for 4 years now. I don't know, 4.5 years. It feels weird to not be on the stream on a weekly basis at this point. So yeah, I'm very happy that we were able to be here today, even if it's funny. We were just chatting and we're like, what are we gonna we have this topic, what are we actually gonna say? And we were both kind of like, well, I've got a couple of things, but it's like we'll see what the audience wants to talk about. Okay.
Yeah. It's one of those weeks.
Yeah. So, but no, it's a I'm not sad about it, right? It's here in Raleigh, the weather's getting better. I say the weather's getting better. It's supposed to be like 70 degrees this weekend. That's crazy to me.
Ooh, nice.
This was after we got snow last week, which my kids enjoyed. Because I don't know, I assume Raleigh is like Texas there, of like snow is very rare. And so therefore we are completely unprepared for it in all ways. So the result is we got less than an inch of snow, but the kids got out of school early one day and then were out of school the next 2 days and then started late on the following Friday. So
Yes.
All for less than an inch of snow. It cracks me up.
Yeah. Well, I think they didn't get out early, but when they got out, it was the same thing. Like basically by 4:00 in the afternoon, or 6:00 in the afternoon, we got the text. Yep. School's canceled. There's going to be snow, blah blah blah. And I think we got a dusting at most. You know what I mean? And it was like 2:00 in the morning. So yeah, it was awesome.
So, no, my fiance, she works at a hospital, so she has to go in, right? There is no option. And she's from Connecticut. So she's like, this is nothing. Why are people making a big deal out of this? I'm like, listen, you've lived here for like 15 years. You know how Raleigh is when it comes to snow. Like,
don't pretend.
Yeah.
You're Southern now. Yeah. Don't pretend.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see you, brother. Happy to be back in the saddle, as they say. Thank you to our audience for joining us. Our topic today is I'm going to say a little non-specific. I have a couple of things that I want to talk about that I think are important that have happened in the last month and a half since we've been gone. So I definitely want to cover those things. Jonny, we wanted to cover or talk a little bit about kind of what 2024 looked like, and then maybe what 2025 is going to look like.
Yeah.
So neither one of us, I don't know about you, Jonny. I am not clairvoyant or otherwise able to predict the future. As they say, what's the saying, right? Predictions are hard, especially about the future.
Yes.
So, I think it'll be interesting to talk about at least some of the things that I think might be on the horizon or might be happening this year, not just with Red Hat, but sort of in the industry as a whole. So I'm interested to see from our audience perspective, any thoughts or opinions that y'all have. So let's see, Masoot, on February 1st, I'll be using OpenShift for the first time in your workplace. Awesome. I hope that it is everything you want it to be, and it is not it's not a challenge, or not the challenge that you think it might be.
Yes. And if you get stuck, feel free to email us. I'm personally in email jail, so I'm trying to work myself out of it. So, but I will eventually hopefully reply.
Let's see. I still have 16. So let me tell you how my 2025 is going. I still have 16 email threads, of which 8 of them have arrived in the last approximately 56 minutes. Yeah. The other 8 are ones that have existed since before Christmas that I have not been able to close out. So
yeah. I've got inbox anxiety. Like every time I look at it, I really do kind of like freeze a little bit. Like it's kind of paralyzing. So
Yeah, I'm going to have to declare Slack bankruptcy as well because
yeah.
I can't keep up with Slack at this point. So anyways, so without further ado, I'm not gonna, let's not do a top of mind because I feel like today's entire stream is sort of top of mind.
Yeah.
So I won't do that, but I will go through and do our normal reminder, which is this is an Ask an Expert series or live stream here on Red Hat live streaming, which means that Jonny and I are here to answer and chat about and talk about any questions that you might have. Irrespective of whatever the topic happens to be for the day. So if you've got something on your mind, if you've got a question you want to ask us, if you want to learn more information about something, don't hesitate to ask us. We'll do our best to answer those questions while we're here on the stream. If we cannot get those answers for you or we don't know those answers, which happens quite frequently, we are very happy to reach back into the folks that are subject matter experts. And quite often that leads to them coming on the stream, and then we end up with a whole nother topic to talk about things. So a lot of times, folks may not realize this, but like Jonny, I feel like sometimes Jonny and I have I do a more talking than Jonny does, and it looks like Johnny's like typing away, and that's because he is. Jonny's the one who's like in the background furiously slacking and or emailing and or G chatting and or whatever other people.
Yes, please reply.
So I'm good at tap dancing while Johnny's doing the hard work of actually tracking down answers. A quick note here, Jonny. So 4.18 is not out yet.
Right.
So they did do the What's New presentation. Is that this week?
Yeah, they did Monday.
Okay,
Monday. Yep.
I can't keep up. So yes, I don't know if you've ever looked at my calendar, Jonny. My calendar this entire week is I have Friday afternoon free. Otherwise, my calendar is basically entirely booked. So it's all mushing together.
Yeah. I can't like I've tried to get on your books before. Like, no, I hit you up in Slack. It's easier.
Yeah, definitely. So this past Monday we had the What's New with 4.18. We wanted to talk a little bit about that. Historically when we do these, we'll do a stream or three on like what's new for admins with each one of the releases. So we wanted to touch on a few of those things that we feel are going to be important. I also have pulled out, in conjunction with one of my other topics, what's new for virtualization admins with OpenShift 4.18. So definitely want to talk about those things. But yeah, the 4.18 has not yet shipped. You can get access to the RC versions. I think we're up to RC 6 right now.
Yep.
So if you browse to the appropriate mirror site and you look in the appropriate place, you can find the RC6 installer as well as client, and from there you can go and test it. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And one thing, just to kind of recap on some of the things, some of the sidebar conversations that we've had with others at Red Hat is OpenShift Commons in London is coming up. I think that KubeCon's like right around April 1st or something like that. So if you want to register for the OpenShift Commons event, you can use this link. If I could actually type the right thing. And then the call for papers, if you wanted to submit a proposal, it ends February 10th. And here is the link for that. And also the last one is the it's cool that we have R Hope 9 on here since he was the last superhero from at least from the live stream. We Red Hat are going through this superhero award. So if you have somebody that you know that you work with quite a bit that you would consider a Red Hat OpenShift superhero, you can nominate them, and then they will be glorified in all their brilliance at the OpenShift Commons event. Like we try and celebrate them, and I think R Hope 9 got a cape or maybe a T-shirt or maybe it's in the mail or something like that. But like that, there's some level of swag that comes with it. So make sure you do it. It's kind of a cool thing. And then if you do get it, let me know, and then I'll wear my cape one day. We can wear our capes together.
Yeah, I think I think it was supposed to be a cape. Hopefully you received that, or hope not. If not, definitely let us know, and we'll make sure to let the team of folks know. But I do want to point out that this is the OpenShift Superhero Awards. So there's 3 categories: Builder, Advocate, and Ambassador. It is a community award. So it is not for Red Hat employees. Jonny and I, we love you all. We love doing the things that we do. As you could argue that we are both advocates and ambassadors and maybe builders. I do have manager and marketing in my title, so that's iffy. So it's one of those, like, it is meant to be for you all, for our community of people, for the people who are using OpenShift or OKD, and that's not for us, Red Hatters, the people who have the fedora. Wait, you don't have a fedora in your background, Johnny.
No, I know
You gotta hang it from the ceiling fan or something back there.
If I wouldn't have moved, if I actually moved back up to my office, then I have it up there. But yeah, I'm kind of a bum. I'm pretty much the worst.
The worst. You're so awful, Johnny. So awful.
That's terrible.
All right. So for our audience, don't hesitate to ask questions at any time. We love hearing from y'all. Again, it doesn't matter if it's related to what we're talking about as today's overall theme or at that particular moment. We'll do our best to address those. We may not get to them like immediately as soon as you post them, but we'll circle back around. And we always try and wrap up at the end and like review all of our chat and stuff like that. So with that being said, let's see. What have we got on our list of things to talk about today, Johnny?
I don't know if we actually listed anything other than
the 418 stuff.
Yeah. I think if just to start with the recap of 2024, right? If we kind of look back, we did this, I think 2 years ago when we did like a recap, especially when security was a big thing. You remember when like the EO, the executive order came out about supply chain security, and it just kind of it really was like, okay, this is the whole focus shifted to that. This year we had a similar kind of event, right, with AI, where AI really Chat GPT became a household product, right? It really became like a Microsoft or an Apple or Red Hat, like a dinner table type conversation thing. And so it was kind of cool to see the shift in like, all right, hey, technology's moving this way. It looks like we're all platform, platform engineering was like a big thing kind of like leading into the year. And then it was like, okay, we're going to pivot and we're going to do AI. And then AI was like the everything. So we had Lightspeed, Ansible Lightspeed, OpenShift Lightspeed came out. I think you did a keynote on OpenShift Lightspeed, right?
Yeah, and I want to point out, like, you could argue that 2023? I guess it was the latter half of 2023. Maybe the start of 2024. To your point, like, when I would go out and talk with customers, and I'm in the EBC and I'm talking to senior level folks and stuff like that. It's when it was like, hey, who knows what Chat GPT is, right? Or who knows what generative AI is?
Mm-hmm.
And you might get one or two of the nerds that know what it is and can talk about it. And now it's one of those, like, everybody raises their hand. Everybody's aware of what it is. Now the news is all around DeepSeek and the stuff that's happening there, which I will point out, DeepSeek is really, really interesting because it's an open source model like Granite.
Yeah.
And, that to me is really cool, right? Yet again, we see open source being, I'm sure there will be more details emerge. I'm sure there will be a lot more people picking apart and otherwise dissecting and diving deeply into these things using way more knowledge than I could ever hope to have at this point about it. But like, it's an open source model and it seems to be really, really good. So that's interesting to me.
Yeah. It's cool. I think one of the things that we've always talked about, right, like with just technology and AI and all that, it's not meant to, I mean, maybe I'm sure there's some nefarious reason out there to where it will replace somebody for something, but like they're meant to enable us, right? And like make things better. Like these Chat GPT specifically and DeepSeek are really, we're going to benefit from that. Like that's going to make us better.
It's funny because I was talking with a friend of mine the other day who is not in the technology realm and all this, and they were talking about ChatGPT and like, oh yeah, I use ChatGPT to come up with recipes and blah 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 and this and that. And it's one of those, like, the comparison that I had was like, if you're listening to a podcast or watching a news story or something like that, and it's somebody or a team of people that you watch regularly and they cover a broad range of topics. And it's one of those like, oh yeah, I always learned something from that. Or yeah, that was really interesting. And then one day the topic is on something that you're a subject matter expert on. And you realize that they're wrong on somewhere between 20 and 50% of the things.
Yeah.
Or otherwise like hand wave over a lot of things that are actually really important and really relevant. And then you suddenly question, like, wait a minute, are all of these other things that they talked about the same? And that's my Andrew's big personal concern with, the generative AI stuff, a lot of the tools that we're using in that, hallucinations are an issue. And
Big time, yeah.
like, I've spent basically the last year being focused on virtualization, and so I'm watching, and we're piloting, and we're testing out a lot of stuff with OpenShift virtualization and OpenShift Lightspeed, and like we're very diligent about, like, I always go in and check things and look at, like, okay, is this answer valid? Is this answer accurate? Is this answer correct? Like, there's a lot of effort and investment that goes into preventing hallucinations.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a solid point, right? And I think that, like, it's all in how you use the tool and like what you're trying to use the tool for, right? If you're trying to find like the de facto, this is it, the rubber stamp answer for something, like, might not be the right place. But what I like to use it for is like, okay, how do I take this long sentence that I just typed up? How can I just can you just summarize this for me?
Yeah, or give me the summary of this document. Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
and it's awesome.
Or convert this PDF into Markdown. I do that.
Yes,
sometimes.
also.
Masood, to what extent will AI be involved when using OpenShift? So generally speaking, we break AI into two different categories. So there is AI integrated with the product, and then there is AI as a workload running on top of OpenShift. You could argue that there's a third or a half of another category, which is like doing things like model training and stuff like that, versus like doing things like model serving and otherwise applications that are using that model, depending on if you want to break those into two or keep them as one. So OpenShift Lightspeed being the Red Hat umbrella brand for all of our AI-enabled assistants. So there's OpenShift Lightspeed, which is the second of them, I think. The original was Ansible Lightspeed.
Mm-hmm.
So Ansible Lightspeed is a tool chain to help you write Ansible playbooks, right? You ask it, hey, I want to create an Ansible playbook that will provision me a virtual machine in Azure that uses this network, that has this IP, and can connect to these networks, and it spits out the Ansible YAML, the Ansible playbook in order to do that. So OpenShift Lightspeed, which I think came before RHEL Lightspeed, maybe they were at the same time, but so OpenShift Lightspeed is more it's more like a chat agent that you interact with, and you say, hey, how do I turn on, I don't know, virtual, swap for virtual machines in OpenShift, and it uses the information that it has at its disposal, which is documentation, stuff like that, and it gives you the relevant bits and pieces. They're also making and taking a lot of effort now to add context awareness to it. So basically within that chat agent window, and it's just a little pop-up in the bottom corner. I'll see if I can find a cluster that has it installed here in a moment. But you can go in and you can attach things like YAML and log files. So you can say, browse to the screen for, in the GUI, it's browse to the screen for your virtual machine, and it's throwing an error. And you can say, hey, here's the YAML and here's the log files. Why is this virtual machine having this error? And it will do its best to try and figure that out. So that's one side of it. So OpenShift Lightspeed, they're making massive headway. I don't remember. I think it's still in dev preview.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think it's still dev preview.
I'd have to verify, but it may actually be in the what's new stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if it's there. So the other side is, and this is slightly confusing because there is what used to be called, what was it, Red Hat OpenShift Data Science?
Yes.
RHODS,
Yep.
which we lovingly called Roads, which we're not allowed to call Roads. So it's now, now there is the OpenShift AI umbrella. So OpenShift AI consists of a set of tools for doing basically data science on top of OpenShift. So it comes with a bunch of basically pre-configured, but also able to be customized things for, like, hey, create me a PyTorch environment with this set of resources and access to these data sets. So that way, as a data scientist, I can go in and I can do all my stuff and retrain my model and spit it out, and then it has a set of model serving capabilities inside of there.
Yeah.
So that way I can use it, not only to build my model, but also to integrate it with my applications. And then that sort of half of one that I was also mentioning is how do I take all of the other features of OpenShift and leverage those for my AI enhanced or AI enabled or AI integrated application. So I used OpenShift AI over in this cluster. My data scientists did their thing. I now have the model being served from over there. Now my team, my app dev team is going through and they're using things like pipelines and GitOps and all of that to go through and deploy and manage the application that's consuming that model. And there's a lot of stuff around software supply chain that's going on there. And there's just a whole bunch of stuff. So
Yeah.
Long-winded answer to say there's a lot going on. I think it's a very interesting area. I think we're learning a lot. I say we, my team of folks in tech marketing, I think the engineering folks are learning a lot.
Yes.
So several of the AI folks are all here when I go into the Red Hat Tower downtown Raleigh. I interact with them. They're all brilliant and far smarter than I could ever hope to be, because I type my questions into the thing and it gives me an answer, and then they tell me, "Oh yes, the vector database, blah 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 blah." I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah, I pick things up and put them down. All right.
Yeah.
And one thing to add on to the roads thing, oh my god, the Red Hat OpenShift AI is that, like, if you've ever used Open Data Hub or Kubeflow or anything like that, that it's a packaged, productized version of all of that, and it's obviously everything when it's new probably has, like, okay, a little bit to be desired, but it's come a long way, and it's pretty much like you can do so much through one platform, where again you can set up pipelines, you can set up service mesh or model mesh, you can set up like your Kubeflow pipelines. It's a pretty powerful tool and platform, and it's definitely worth a shot if you're at least interested or if your company is looking at that.
Yeah. I would say, because so OpenShift Lightspeed, so flipping to the other side of that coin, OpenShift Lightspeed, I believe, is included in OpenShift Container Platform and OpenShift Platform Plus. So you'll be able to use that, and inside of there. I meant to look and see if I could find that.
It is tech preview, by the way.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to remember I swear that there's a cluster that I have access to that has OpenShift Lightspeed installed to it, and my brain is completely blank on what the name of that cluster is. Getting old sucks. Let's see. While the back of my brain processes that, let's look at a little bit of chat. We need to call an external API after a machine is provisioned in the underlying infrastructure. Can we hook into that lifecycle phase and call external APIs? I don't think so. I'm trying to think. I mean, I guess you technically could have something like a webhook that happens after the fact, but it's not like I don't think you could enter like where, okay, the machine is provisioned and then something happens and then it joins the cluster and continues on with the rest of the process. I don't think that anything like that is possible at the moment.
Not internally. Like, you could use tooling, right? You could probably use like a pipeline or even like a playbook that it's waiting for something, and then
you could even do something like so to your point, I don't think it's anything that exists today, but you could definitely do something like create a watcher against the API that points to an operator, and that operator then takes some sort of action whenever it sees a new node or a new machine get created. Have it trigger event-driven Ansible or something like that happening. That would be what comes to mind off the top of my head.
And you could probably do something through, if you're using ACM, you probably set up some kind of policy and do something like that. I don't know. It's definitely not out of the box. There'd be some massaging for sure.
Yeah. I swear I saw this cluster. Sorry, I'm getting My brain is barely functional. I'm just now realizing I haven't had any caffeine today. I got distracted this morning by the cat because the cat, and now I've anyways. What was I going to say? I swear I saw something very similar to this asked in one of the Slack channels the other day. So I'll see if I can dig that up, see if I can find what the response to that was. RHope 9, phone battery gave out. It sounds like my kids, they only charge when their phone gets down to like 1%. Like, why don't you just plug it in at night? Then it's charged all of the time. Yeah, but I like to use my phone at night. Like, you sleep sometime. Like, plug it in while you're sleeping.
Oh my god, yes.
Which is not to say you don't do that, RHope 9. I'm sure you've had I know it's late in the day for you, so you've probably had a full day of doing things. Supported version of Open Data Hub. It used to be very impressive even before the supported offering. Yeah, I honestly have not looked at that. So
yeah. Open Data Hub. The only thing that used to it used to frustrate me when they would you make an update to the operator, the Open Data Hub platform, right? And it would change the spec of say the kubeflow, and so then you'd have to go back and figure out okay, what changed, and it would either be something very minute, but it would break the deployment of the operator, and you're like, oh my god. So, but it's way better now. It's so much this is 2 years ago of angst that I have not forgotten because.
Oh yes, glad you got the other swag that was associated with that. And yes, Aubrey is awesome. I've worked with Aubrey for over a decade at this point. She's great. So Jonny, you said in 2024 AI, we saw a lot of change and a lot of effort and a lot of just attention to AI as a whole. My side, I said earlier, 2024 for me was focused almost exclusively on virtualization. There's a reason for that, where my job went from being 20% virtualization to being basically 100% virtualization. And that's there's a lot of market things that are happening and have happened in the last 18 months or so that have affected that. And, Virt has become one of those things that is, it is one of the priorities for, OpenShift and the OpenShift business unit. So I say that. So for example, for anybody who is watching the What's New with OpenShift 4.18 stream, it's not really coupled or associated with OpenShift 4.18. It was more actually a January 1st thing. It had its own set of releases, but we now have a new edition of OpenShift known as OpenShift Virtualization Engine. So OpenShift Virtualization Engine, and the way that I describe it is the exact same OpenShift, right? The bits are exactly the same, right? The installer is exactly the same, all of that. It is the exact same OpenShift virtualization. So whether you're using OpenShift Kubernetes Engine, OKE, OpenShift Container Platform, OCP, when you tick the box to deploy OpenShift virtualization or you install that operator, it is the exact same OpenShift virtualization across OpenShift Virtualization Engine, OpenShift Kubernetes Engine, OpenShift Container Platform. So OpenShift Virtualization Engine is bare metal OpenShift, where you are specifically only allowed to run virtualized workloads. So if you think of OKE as being, it's OpenShift, I can run containers, I can run virtual machines, I can do, all of the things. There's a big list of operators that are in the subscription guide. So OKE is containers and VMs. OCP is containers and VMs with all of the other features of, container platform. OVE, OpenShift Virtualization Engine, is just virtual machine-based workload. So you may be thinking in the back of your head, wait, it's still OpenShift. It's still a Kubernetes, platform. Isn't everything containerized? Yes. So you do still. So it comes down to you are still allowed to run containerized things that are supporting that cluster and virtual machines. So a good example is, say you're using IBM Fusion Storage, right? We had them on the stream. So IBM Fusion Storage deploys using containers, right? It's Kubernetes. You can absolutely still run that in the cluster. The subscription guide has there's a big segment in there that describes what you are and aren't allowed to deploy and stuff like that. So Babuni, so the docs for OpenShift Virtualization Engine are effectively the exact same docs. So if we go to here, I'll share my window here.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I was just going to get the link to OpenShift Virtualization, but you're going. So
yeah. So I was going to show if anybody wants to download the RC for the release candidates for OpenShift 4.18, how to do that. So if you go to here, Johnny, I'll paste this link over here for you to put into chat. So if you go to the mirror, sorry, I'm going to tangent for a moment, and then you click OCP. And then if we come all the way down to the bottom of this thing, we'll have our candidate releases. If I select candidate 418, you can see in here is my OpenShift client for RC6. And down below is OpenShift install for RC6. So that's how you get access to those releases. I will say that the other way to get access to like the super early release builds, you can actually go to console.redhat.com and then OpenShift and create a new cluster. And there's a thing that says deploy pre-release versions. That'll take you to what is currently the 4.19 nightlies, which is kind of crazy that you can get 4.19 nightlies before 4.18 is released. But, engineering does what engineering does. Anyway, so let's go to docs.redhat.com because docs.openshift.com is going away, which is not to say if you go to docs.openshift.com, it's going to land on like just an empty 404. You'll get redirected over to docs.redhat.com. So if we go to Red Hat OpenShift Container Platform, and then down here somewhere, so if we go to virtualization, so you see we have this introduction to virtualization and the release notes sections here. And if I click on these, it goes through and you see I have all of these different things about deploying, installing, OpenShift virtualization into my cluster. So if I go to products and I go to virtualization engine, so if I search for Red Hat OpenShift virtualization engine, you see I land at more or less the exact same page that I just saw for my OpenShift documentation. So in here, I've got OpenShift Virtualization Engine and see related products, Migration Toolkit, ACM, AAP. So if I click on OpenShift Virtualization Engine, this is going to take me to just an overview, right? It's going to tell me like, hey, this is what it is. And, you see additional resources, like all this other stuff. But really what it's linking you out to is the OpenShift virtualization documentation. Right. So remember I said OpenShift virtualization engine is OpenShift. It's the exact same OpenShift as all of the others. So when you go and deploy a cluster and you say, hey, I purchased an OpenShift virtualization engine, or I want to test out OpenShift virtualization engine. I have a developer subscription or something like that. Remember, developer subscriptions are free. So all you're doing when you have that OpenShift virtualization engine subscription, or you want to use OpenShift virtualization engine, is you're just deploying OpenShift, and then you're only using that set of features and capabilities. So when we look at, so let's go back a page. So right here we have the self-managed Red Hat OpenShift subscription guide. So if I click on this, if I scroll, we'll use the navigation and come down here to Appendix 1. This tells you all of the things that are included with each one of the editions. So you see here is on the far right, man, I had to think way too hard about that. Far right column is OpenShift Virtualization Engine. So you can see all of the features, all of the capabilities that are included here. So the important ones to look at down here, so you see Red Hat OpenShift GitOps is included with OpenShift Virtualization Engine, right? I can use it to manage my clusters. I can use it for my virtual machines. Same thing for platform logging. Same thing for user workload monitoring. And then down below, we start to see where some things are present in OKE, which is this column, that aren't in OVE, which is this column. So you can see Red Hat Enterprise Linux support and entitlement for worker and infrastructure nodes. So with other editions of OpenShift, you can use RHEL worker nodes, RHEL compute nodes. OpenShift virtualization only supports RCOS, Red Hat Enterprise Linux Core OS worker nodes, so therefore OVE only supports Core OS worker nodes. Entitlement for Red Hat Enterprise Linux VM guests, operating system, and container builds. So if you are using bare metal OpenShift container engine, OpenShift, so OKE or OCP, and OpenShift Platform Plus is OCP plus ACM plus ACS plus Quay plus ODF. So it is the same as OCP in that regard. When you deploy RHEL guest VMs, they inherit their subscription from the bare metal. So OVE, you see, doesn't. So if I'm using OVE and I deploy a RHEL VM to that cluster, that RHEL VM needs its own subscription, whether that's individually subscribed or using a VDC subscription. User-provided container workloads. This is another big one. So remember, I can deploy my virtual machines and I have all the virtual machines that I want inside of there. But if I want to deploy a database, MySQL or something like that in a container, that is not considered to be allowed with the OVE subscription. So here's the detailed one where it goes down and it talks about like individual operators, and we have like the name of those operators and whether or not they're allowed and all of that. So same big long table. I don't know. Can you hear in my voice that I'm like shivering, Johnny? It's freezing cold in my house for some reason.
I cannot hear that.
Okay, good. Because I'm like, my hands are like shaking because they're so cold. Like I can barely type.
That's why I have my hoodie on. Like, because my wife keeps the house at like 68 or 69 and it's 20 degrees outside. I'm like, oh my God, I'm dying.
Yeah. So anyways, you can see if you go down through this OpenShift, the OpenShift subscription guide, you can see all of the differences that are included in here. The other thing to include, if we come back up here, here's the OpenShift virtualization engine and related products section. This walks through like what you're allowed to, right? Unlimited VMs, unsubscribed hosts cannot be used to run application instances in containers, only virtual machines. Does not include subscriptions for running Red Hat OpenShift editions inside of virtual machines. So importantly, as of the new year, if you purchase bare metal OpenShift container engine, OpenShift Kubernetes engine, OKE, or OCP, bare metal OKE, OCP now include entitlements for any hosted virtual instances. So let's talk about this for a moment. So historically, let's say I deploy my virtualized OpenShift cluster to Red Hat Virtualization or OpenStack or VMware or anywhere that's virtualized on-prem. That virtual OpenShift cluster, I need to have core-based subscriptions for all of my virtualized compute nodes, right? It's 2 cores or 4 vCPUs per subscription. I need however many I need in order to cover all of my virtual machines, worker virtual machines, not infra or control plane. So the way that it used to work is with bare metal subscriptions, right? So I have bare metal, say OKE or bare metal OCP running in my cluster. If I then wanted to host virtual OpenShift instances on top of that cluster, I still had to pay core-based entitlements. So what we would tell customers is, okay, the bare metal for those hosted cluster instances is considered infrastructure, so long as no other applications are running on there. So, use something like taints and node selectors, and when you deploy those virtual OpenShift clusters onto your bare metal OpenShift clusters, they stay on those nodes. Those nodes aren't being used for anything else. Therefore, you don't have to pay twice, once for bare metal, once for virtual. So now we've kind of flipped that. So now if I purchase bare metal OKE, I deploy my bare metal cluster, I can now deploy as many as many virtual OKE clusters as I want on top of that bare metal OKE cluster. So if you want to deploy OCP, OpenShift Container Platform clusters on top of the bare metal OKE cluster, that is an uplift that you would have to do, but at the equivalent level, they are included with that. So I think this is a pretty significant change. Check with your account team if you're interested in doing that. My opinion, I think there's a great opportunity here for Jonny. What happened to our faces? I'm just realizing that I'm only looking at my shared screen.
Oh, you probably went full screen.
Did I? No. I don't know what just happened here.
Yeah, I think it went full screen in the. Mommy.
There we go. That's
There
the
it
one
is.
I'm used to. Man, see what happens when we don't stream for 6 weeks?
Yes.
What was I saying? If this is something you're interested in, and in particular, if you have a substantial footprint of virtualized OpenShift today, this may be something worth considering. Chat with your account team. Find out what is and isn't allowed, what works best for you in your situation. I don't know, because Andrew is disconnected from these processes. I don't know if, for example, let's say you purchased your bare metal OpenShift last year. I don't know if these new rules apply without changing anything, or if it only applies once you renew, or with new bare metal subscriptions purchased this year. So definitely check with your account team for all the rules and all the things that we're supposed to do there. So tangent on that done. So the next one being the guest entitlements. So these are the big things with, and I already talked about that. RHEL guests are not included with OVE. Yeah. So I'll say fairly significant changes. The other change, in my opinion, big change that happened with the bare metal subscriptions in the new year is they now cover up to 128 cores across 1 or 2 sockets. So I think you can probably tell that OpenShift Virtualization Engine is targeted at being a data center hypervisor, right? Up to 128 cores, with, I don't even remember how many terabytes of memory we support, but these are big, virtualization, hypervisor servers. OVE is meant to be like if you're somebody, a virtualization team who is responsible for the entire virtualization infrastructure in your organization, you probably, say you have 10,000 VMs, only a percentage of those is going to be RHEL or OpenShift, right? So not including, these subscriptions is probably not meaningful when you have, most of your VMs are running Ubuntu or SLES or Windows or, who knows what else. By the way, all of those operating systems are supported with OpenShift virtualization. So you absolutely can move them over if you so choose. It's really meant for that virtualization use case. I want a data center virtualization solution. The solution from Red Hat happens to be built on top of OpenShift and OpenShift virtualization, and now we have an offering that is targeted specifically at that. So I'll pause there to catch my breath and warm my hands up slightly.
So we had a question, and you may have covered it. I was trying to find some other answers to different questions, but it's from Sarote. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. But the question was around, if you can't run container applications, is logging, are you able to use the logging operator on OpenShift since you would have it? I would assume so, right? Since that's more of an infrastructure.
Here, I'm gonna copy that. I'm gonna post this into the chat here. So if we scroll down, we'll see here. Well, the entitlement for OVE restricts customer application instances so key on this, customer application instances to VMs only. Many of the infrastructure requirements, such as storage drivers, backup applications, forwarding agents, i.e. logs, ACM, AAP, run in containers. Your entitlement does allow you to run those infrastructure features in containers.
Yeah.
So more or less anything that is already considered infrastructure is automatically approved to run with OVE and containers. And then it goes a little bit beyond that. So storage drivers, I think, is a big one. So for example, if you use, again, IBM Fusion, Portworx, I'm trying to remember who else we've had on the stream that have talked about it. I think those are the only two. but yeah, or the Trilio folks, which I don't remember. I don't remember if they've been on the stream before. I know we're talking to them about coming on the stream.
Yeah, they've been on. It's been
Yeah.
a long time though. It's been over a year, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. See, I'm trying to remember other backup suites that are now fully supported. By the way, if you ever want to know what works with OpenShift virtualization, you can go to red.ht/works with virt. Oops, works plural. And that is a shortcut that goes over to this landing page that has sort of all the ecosystem of things that work with virtualization. So, see, from a storage perspective, the Dell container storage modules, their suite of CSI modules, IBM Fusion, Infinidat, Hitachi, switching over to networking, right? All the different networking providers. So interestingly, this list is slightly different than the certified or the operators in the certified catalog or their certified operator catalog. For example, NetApp Trident was never, as a standalone operator, certified. It was certified through Astra when NetApp had Astra, but it was never listed by itself in the catalog. And that's because with this interface, I'll call it a catalog, although that feels confusing and redundant. We don't require certification. Rather, it's attestation and testing that it works with OpenShift virtualization. So slightly different in that regard. Fully supported by both. I'm picking on NetApp at the moment. So fully supported by both NetApp and Red Hat. Same thing with Infinidat. Same thing with Dell, although I think these are certified. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff that's available in here. I use this page all of the time. Your backup and disaster recovery. We had the VMcast folks on. Portworx, which I think it's strange that Portworx is listed under backup but not under storage. But you can't use Portworx backup without using Portworx storage. So there's that.
Yeah.
Was there any other? I've seen a little bit of chat going by. I haven't been keeping up.
Yeah, we do. It's from Xro. C Group V2 is GA. When will user namespaces for pods become GA? I saw it's still tech preview I saw user namespaces as tech preview in 4.17. I was looking through the 4.18 slides to see if there was any mention of it, and I didn't see a mention of the graduation to GA. So it's, unless it's something we'd have to go back and ask.
Let me see if I can find. It might be in the roadmap presentation. So if you go to red.ht/next and new, so you can see the what's next presentation. The recording is here and the slides are right below it. So my thought is it would probably be in here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find a searchable version of this, so that way we don't have to click through like 100 slides.
Yeah, that's what I was also. we are literally in the same place. That's awesome. Let's see here. And yes, rhope 9. I will dig up. I'll try and find some Prometheus rules. I was gonna say we had Turbonomics come on like literally right before the break of 24, and they did a lot of stuff around that where you could look at the PVCs and stuff like that, and make it was kind of cool. But that's not an open source tool or anything that you would want to hook into Prometheus. It's definitely a product that is designed for that. All right, and then Sully, if you want, there's another one. It's I'm Mhiru. Hello, any advice for someone who is interested in OpenShift? How to master the subject?
I mean, if anybody figures out how to master it, please let me know.
Yes.
Because so wow, words. So folks who have watched the stream for any amount of time, you've probably heard me say, OpenShift is a fractal. For every question you have, in the process of answering it, you will spawn effectively an infinite number of additional questions and repeat ad nauseum. And OpenShift is built on top of Kubernetes, which is another fractal, is built on top of CoreOS, which is really RHEL, which is another fractal. So it is, there's a lot there.
Mm-hmm.
I came from a world of storage, and I was a CSI expert, and I felt like I knew a lot about that little tiny realm. And then when I came to Red Hat 6.5 years ago, and I suddenly started focusing on a lot more broad things, I quickly got overwhelmed, and I ended up specializing just on sort of one narrow range of things in OpenShift. So CoreOS, the installer, etcd, sort of other low level things that have always been a part of my skill set, networking, storage, all of that type of stuff. I rely heavily on my team for all of the other things. So my team of folks covers kind of the entire rest of the stack in varying degrees. So how do you get started, or how do you figure out what that is? I think it depends on the type of learner that you are. If you're a lead or learn from an instructor type of person, you can always use the Red Hat learning services. So if we look, for example, DO080. So DO080 is a course available. It is free for anyone and everyone. It's an online learning course that teaches you sort of the basics about Kubernetes and OpenShift and containers, and how to deploy applications inside of there. Man, I really hope it's not still 4.12 based. That's a little old at this point. Going beyond 080, there is a number of, I think if I click this one will tell me. No. I so infrequently go to the learning page that I can never find out where it is. Anyways, there's an entire learning path around OpenShift. So there is DO180, which is kind of the next step in utilizing Kubernetes and OpenShift for application development. There's DO280, which moves to the administrator side. I believe there's an exam after that. There's DO316, which is OpenShift virtualization. There's just all kinds of other things over there.
288 is like the app dev, and then so if you're looking for like linear paths, so say if you're doing like the CK, the Certified Kubernetes Administrator, that's probably more akin to the DO280, and then the DO288 is more akin to the CKAD, and then Sully just mentioned the 316, which is OpenShift virtualization, and then I think there's DO380,
that's what I'm
which
looking at now.
Is like the deep dive. It's really like that expert level, or like the senior engineer level on in OpenShift management, day 2 ops and stuff like that. And then there's ACM and all the OPP stuff.
So, and that's all of that is just from Red Hat. Of course, we have many training partners across the world who also offer similar things, as well as their own customized versions and stuff like that. So that's all instructor led or virtual instructor led type of things. If you just want to get hands on, the typical starting point that I suggest is learn.openshift.com. So this will redirect you over to developers.redhat.com/learn. If you come down through here and I select product, and we dig down through this big old list that you can't sort through, or can't search through rather, one of these in here is Red Hat OpenShift. And this will take you to a number of different learning paths. You can see learning paths for here. We'll do migrate virtual applications to Red Hat using OpenShift virtualization. And if I click on this, right, it kind of walks me through different things that I can look at and all that. Right, it tells me these learning paths walk me through things, but all of these assume that you already have resources. If I come here and I look, some of these, at least they used to. Let's see, I want a individual lesson, I think is what they're called now. So I have, here, we'll pick on solution patterns, Jonny. Modernizing your VM workloads using Rosa with OpenShift. It used to be that, It used to be that we could do interactive learning things here. Why am I not seeing those anymore? This page has changed.
Yeah. Oh no, this whole everything about this.
Foundations of OpenShift. Okay. Prerequisites, details. Okay. Oh, here you can access the developer sandbox. There we go. So this is where I can go through. Yep. If I want to. Yes. Anyways, there is on this page. I clearly cannot find it because the page has changed from what I expected it to be. Anyways, there is a way that you can get access to basically interactive clusters that you can go in and test things on. I used to use these all the time when we go to conferences because you could click into the lesson and it would take you to a. It's not Instruct Lab. Was the name of that thing? Anyways, it was a thing where it was running like a single node OpenShift in AWS for like 20 minutes. And so it was great when I was working in a booth, I could go into this web page and I could click one of those and I'd have an OpenShift cluster in seconds that I could, show people things. Anyways, this is a great way to get started. So again, learn.openshift.com is the shortcut link to get there. Look for those OpenShift lessons. So here at the top, we've got these, there's featured learning. Here's all of the courses. I swear there was interactive labs that used to be listed there. And then down below under the featured topics, look for this OpenShift learning, and that'll take you to a bunch of the different learning paths for how to do this. Just a ton of information there. Last but not least, if you want to use that either in conjunction with your own resources, or you just want to go out on your own and start figuring things out, there is try.openshift.com.
And before we move on too far, Sully, so I'm here like the free to test. All the stuff that Sully was just showing is free. Yeah, it's all available to you. And the stuff that he's about to show you, just keep in mind, as long as you have a developer account on developers.redhat.com, you get access to the software for free. So there's all these resources are available to you, without you having to put any financial, incentive up front.
Yep. Yeah, you may have to pay for example, if you deploy onto AWS, right, you would pay for the AWS resources, but with a developer entitlement, you get up to, I think it's 16 nodes of OpenShift in there. So try.openshift.com takes you to this page. This page kind of walks you through all of the different options that are available. So you can see developer sandbox is what we were just looking at a moment ago. OpenShift container platform, its cost is free. This is referring to the developer entitlements. You can also do a 60-day trial if you don't want to do a developer entitlement. Remember, you have to renew developer entitlements every 365 days. But this is a great way to go, and it is full, the full version. Everything is there, OpenShift. So you're not using a stripped down version or anything like that. You can always go. You literally look at the OpenShift documentation for how to do installs. If you do want a quote unquote low fat version of OpenShift, look for OpenShift Local.
Yep.
So, full fat OpenShift is going to be, it's a full cluster, right? The smallest deployment that you can do is single node OpenShift, which is going to have, now I don't even remember what the requirements are. I think it's 4 CPUs and 16 or 24 gigs of RAM. It might have gone down a little bit. Whereas OpenShift Local is going to be more like Podman Desktop or Docker Desktop, where I have this interface where I can say, basically, I don't remember what the command is anymore, but it's like basically OpenShift up, and it deploys a VM on your laptop, and then you have access to a stripped down version of OpenShift to primarily test applications, see what it's like to, to do deployments, to do builds, that type of stuff in there.
CRC start.
There you go. Code ready containers.
Yep.
Man, that's going back a minute. So yeah, CRC is Code Ready Containers is the old name for OpenShift Local.
Yep.
Formerly Red Hat Code Ready Containers. So tons of resources there. Yep.
If you two ask, what does it cost to get Red Hat Learning subscription for an individual? And the question I have no idea what that would cost. Like it depends, because there's MSRP. Then you could also go through your sales team. Like your company could do it. Like it varies. There's so many different answers. I don't even know what the MSRP is for like a single sub.
I don't either. I don't. I thought actually, wasn't there a page? I thought I saw a page a minute ago that had Red Hat Learning subscription. Build your skills path by the numbers. Okay, here we go. Basic, standard, premium. And it includes all the different things.
But, dang, it's got, okay, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. This little asterisk here, let's see where they define the asterisks. Oh, plus applicable taxes. Again, I would take this as list priced. Talk to your account team because they can probably figure out something.
Yeah.
People ask me how much OpenShift costs, and I say I have no idea because I literally don't. But for my purposes, I use developer entitlements for almost everything. None of my clusters are long lived, right? I don't need to do anything. I don't have resources to do more than 16 nodes. So that meets all of my needs, but certainly in a production environment. But I have no idea. Nobody tells me how much it costs. I guess user namespace question can't be answered ad hoc. Yeah, Xrow, we'll have to ask the product manager for that. One thing we can try. Oops, I want docs.
Yeah, so 417, it's in there. That's tech preview, but on 418, I'm sure it's probably going to be. Oh yeah, I didn't even think about like the.
Yeah, I don't.
That's actually a good place. Let me go check that real quick too.
You're gonna check Jira?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the same. So in case you don't know, anybody can go to issues.redhat.com. You can see I am not logged in at the moment, right? So if I search for OpenShift C Group V2, let's see what comes up, right? So here you can see kind of different projects inside of here, OCP build, so support C Groups V2 and OpenShift builds. Looks like that one is closed. Who knows when that was released? So we don't care about builds specifically, though. Oh, there you go. OCP Strat here is a feature, an unresolved feature that is identified as remove C Group V1 from OpenShift in 419. So keep in mind, this is like the raw Jira product management interface here. So just because it's targeting, 419 candidate, that does not mean it's actually going to make it. It could slip literally until the day that the bits are released. Things can slip out. But looking at this, yeah, V1 is deprecated in 416. RHEL will be removing support for V1 and RHEL 10, so remove in 419. So that appears to be the answer at the moment. And again, I'm not logged in. Anybody can go and do this query.
All right, awesome. And then we also had a question from, and before we move on to that, just so that way, extra, if you would like me to get the answer from the product manager, please email me with the question, and I'll push it out, and I'll get we'll get the exact answer on when they're at least if it's not out, or when they're at least planning on having it out. So
yeah,
feel free to email us. We'll take care of it for you. But yeah, so moving on, we had another question from Sarot about compared to container logs, OpenShift logging can read all the pods via a collector. However, for VMs, how can we collect logs from inside those VMs and send them to OpenShift logging?
Yeah, so you would have to have some agent or forwarder from inside the guest OS. So OpenShift logging can only collect at the platform level. There was at one point an RFE, I thought, to if the VM was logging to like the serial console to collect those. But I feel like that's not a common thing. That feels like something you have to do. You have to go out of your way to accomplish. So the answer would be set up a forwarder from inside of the guest and forward it over. to OpenShift logging.
All right, awesome. And then there was a question about, oh man, I lost it, and I can't believe like the OpenShift. What's the OpenShift monitoring solution? But I can't.
So let's see. Do I have the documentation somewhere? Yeah, here we go. So here is the documentation. If you look under observability, I believe is what it's under. I just got to find it. Observability. Here we go. So we've got the observability overview here. You can see it consists of a number of different components that all fall underneath the observability overview. Remember, I don't remember what episode it was. We had Jamie on, Jamie Parker. So Jamie is one of the product managers for observability. So this is the suite of things that encompass observability. If we go to logging and we look at the, monitoring, and we look at the monitoring overview, effectively, once we get down through here, you see it's Prometheus with Alert Manager. And then it uses Thanos for distributed queries. So if you come up here, there's so OpenShift monitoring has two different capabilities. So with OKE, you only have platform monitoring available to you, which is this side of things. So effectively, all of the system namespaces, right, all of that other stuff, all have monitoring and sort of basics for all of the others. If you are using any other edition of OpenShift, so OpenShift Virtualization Engine, OpenShift Container Platform, OpenShift Platform Plus, you also have the option to deploy user workload monitoring. So the difference here is platform monitoring has its own dedicated Prometheus instance, and that Prometheus instance goes out and it scrapes metrics from the nodes, from all of the various system pods, everything else, right? And it stores them in the requisite places inside of Prometheus. When you deploy or when you enable user workload monitoring, it deploys a separate Prometheus instance in order to collect all of that information and store it separately from this platform logging solution. And then Thanos is the engine that federates queries across those two instances inside of there. Thanos is also used if you have ACM deployed, for example. So ACM will use that Thanos in order to come in and extract the stuff that it needs, that it then stores in its own metrics store and presents through its dashboards. So what does that look like if I come over here to a cluster? So note that this cluster is running 4.18 RC4, and for some reason I'm getting a content security policy violation. Okay. If I come down here to observe and then I go to dashboards, this is going to be the default set of dashboards that are available. And so, for example, if I click on etcd, it'll tell me information about my etcd cluster. If I want to get detailed metrics on things, I can click on inspect, and this takes me directly to effectively the Prometheus metrics query for that particular dashboard. So you can see here's the prom QL query for that particular dashboard and how to get that data out. If you want to create custom dashboards, so if the ones that are here aren't enough for you, don't have the right information, don't have it presented the way you like, you can deploy Grafana instances and hook into that Thanos endpoint. So we did a stream on that a while ago that showed how to do that. Effectively, what you would do is come up here to operators and look for Grafana. So you see we have the community Grafana operator. So you would install that, you would create an instance, and then there's a blog post out there that we linked in that other stream. We'll see if Johnny's typing away furiously. I'm assuming he's searching for it.
Yes, so I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, if we can find that stream, in the links for that stream include a blog post that explains exactly how to create the service account and the Thanos endpoint to use for those dashboards.
I'll update the description of this video when we're done, once I find it, so that way I'm not sitting there trying to dig it up. And one thing to note, when you see distributed tracing in the OpenShift monitoring, that's not Jaeger anymore. That's now OpenShift, I think it's called Tempo. It's like it's a Grafana project, and it does distributed tracing. Yeah, that's something I just learned. I literally just learned that like 2 days ago. I was like, oh, that's cool. But yeah, it's a Grafana project. It's called Tempo, and that's really, we're moving away from we Red Hat are moving away from Jaeger to the Grafana Tempo. I think it's called OpenShift Tempo or something like that.
Well, that raises a whole slew of questions about like what service mesh using now.
Tempo. That's how I found it. That's actually how I found it. So.
All right, good to know.
Yeah.
Let's see. Have we caught up on chat?
So we have one more from DNL. Have you folks used or tried the AI Insights? I'm curious if it will help newbie admins troubleshoot items. And I think we kind of covered this initially in the beginning, but
yeah, OpenShift AI. I've used it here and there. I have tried to keep a user perspective on it. I will admit that 98% of my experience is with the virtualization side of things. So very much the, how do I SSH to my virtual machine, or how can I change the amount of memory associated with this virtual machine, and then I hand it the YAML associated with that VM, and it tells me how to do that type of stuff. So I do think that in line with the how does it help with quote unquote newbie administrators, I think it has definite benefits there. One of the things that Jonny had said earlier when we were talking about AI is, I can't speak for AI in the big picture of things, but from Red Hat's perspective and the way that we're integrating AI with our products, my opinion is it's very much in the, how can we help you be faster and better at your job? So the example that I typically use is, think about when I'm deploying here, I will use a great example. So in my cluster here, if I go in and I try and start this virtual machine, it's not going to start. Right. So it's just going to sit here in the starting phase. And if I come over here and I look at my pod, you can see that my pod has gone into a create container error status. If I go into YAML and I scroll all the way down here, nope, that's not it. Here is the error that it's spitting out, right? It's spitting out some sort of error about how the WASP agent webhook is not responding correctly or something like that. I mean, I know what WASP agent is, right? WASP agent is what's doing swap inside of my cluster. And I can only assume that it is malfunctioning at the moment because this was a 417 GA cluster that was, it had a rough upgrade, shall we say, to 418 RC. So I'm sure that this is not something that is common necessarily, but ideally I would be able to go in and say, tell me what this error is. OpenShift AI or OpenShift Lightspeed, tell me what this error is and how do I fix it? And it will take that information and at least point me in the right direction. So instead of me having to spend, 30 or 60 minutes going out and searching on the web to find what this may come from, searching the Red Hat docs, searching in Jira for known issues that are associated with it. It used to be Bugzilla, but now it's Jira. Instead of me having to do all of that, maybe it already knows something. And I can take that 30 minutes of me searching down to 5 minutes of asking it and it saying, oh, it's probably one of these three things. And now I've just dramatically narrowed down the scope of things that I need to look at. That's the goal. That's the hope associated with OpenShift Lightspeed. Same thing with, how do I, add or change, modify, update different resources inside of the cluster? Sure, I can come up here to the API Explorer and I can say, oh, virtual machine, I want to create a new virtual machine. Why is this column so narrow? Virtual machine preference, virtual machine instance type. Just show me virtual machine. There we go. Like I can go and I can look at this and I can look at the schema and say, okay, well, there's a spec. So what's inside of the spec? Okay, there's, let's see, run strategy, right? So, but it doesn't tell me like what these run strategy values are. Whereas ideally I could go in and I could say, OpenShift Lightspeed, what is a virtual machine run strategy and what should I set it to? And it'll give me that information without me having to go and, Okay, well, I see run strategy. Now tell me what that is. If I come over here and go docs.OpenShift and I type in run strategy, and then it gives me a bunch of information, but it doesn't actually tell me, like this one I know is not going to tell me. So if I go to about high availability and I search for run strategy, it gives me a little bit of information. Right? Okay, let's go back. Maybe that other one does tell me. Run strategies. Oh, here we go. Run strategies. So always rerun on failure, manual, or halted. Okay. Like you see, it took me 3 minutes to figure out information that I could have just asked it. Like, that would be the ideal solution or ideal scenario, in my opinion. By the way, the run strategy. So with OpenShift virtualization, it doesn't know, or by default, the run strategy is set to always, which basically means that the power on state of the virtual machine is controlled by the platform. So if I go here and I start my virtual machine, if somebody shuts it down from within the guest OS, OpenShift virtualization, OpenShift, doesn't know that. It simply sees that, wait a minute, this process that was supposed to be running is no longer running, and then it restarts the virtual machine. If we switch over to the manual run strategy, then basically it follows whatever is happening inside of the VM. And rerun on failure is, you can see if the previous instance fails. So if the process crashed instead of had a clean exit, then it will restart it. Otherwise, if you shut it down from within the guest, it will stay down. Developer-centric Grafana instance blog. Thank you, rHub9. Okay. Jonny, did you find anything?
Oh, I was digging up on the extra question about the C group 2 v2. Like I found the OCP strat issue that directly like correlated to that question, and then was replying back to that. So it is definitely 4.19, at least slated for 4.19. That's on the books. So like you said earlier, it could slip. So I provided the issue to them, and then that information. So it's good.
Thank you. Let's see. I was going to briefly cover like what's new in OpenShift virtualization with 4.18. I can talk about that. I know we're at 80 minutes right now, 12:19. So I think we may save that for a future episode. Maybe invite the product management team on board to give them the opportunity to talk about their stuff in more depth. One of the things that we've been trying to do here on the stream is cover things from I hate this term because it's a marketing term, from the persona and the use case as opposed to from the technology. But that's kind of what it is, right? Because like OpenShift virtualization it's not just one feature. It is all of the things in OpenShift that are relevant to doing and running virtual machines. The same thing like with administrator, OpenShift, what's new in OpenShift for administrators? It spans the whole slew of things. And sometimes developer things are, important, and sometimes they're not. We can safely ignore them. We don't care what version of middleware is running inside of there necessarily, but we do care about things like, oh, there's a new platform that we can deploy to.
Yeah.
With that, I don't have anything else, I don't think.
This was an awesome way to start. Like I was I'm not gonna lie, a little anxious coming into it. I don't mind winging it a lot of times, but like I was like, this is gonna be weird. But the audience, thank you so much for all the questions, because we definitely needed it, and it helps at least for me, let me know that like we're on the right track with what we're thinking, like with what we've seen and what we're seeing, and like we're kind of how things are going and what people are hopefully expecting from us. So this is awesome.
There's a chat here about describe storage move for virtualization from DNL. We showed that. I think it was in episode 139. I showed doing a storage live migration, because that was the what's new for OpenShift for virtualization admins in 4.17. I don't. Let's see here.
I got it right here.
Okay.
Yep. Bam.
Yeah. So the short version is it behaves more or less as you would expect. It's a live migration with the storage being transferred from one PVC to another PVC, and the PVCs are in different storage class. So the details on how it works is we actually use the migration toolkit for containers to do the hard work behind the scenes. So if you watch through that stream, I think we talk about how, like, basically you go to the interface for MTC to kick off that migration. I know that there are plans. I don't know if those plans came to fruition in 4.18 or not. I haven't looked, because I was just looking at my cluster. If you saw me staring at off in the corner of my screen to see if I have it enabled in this cluster, but it is supposed to be integrated directly into the main virtualization interface, so you won't have to go to MTC to kick off a storage live migration. You can do it directly from the OpenShift Admin console. But yeah, it works as expected. It creates a new PVC. There's a process that basically mounts both PVCs. It moves all of the data over, and then it stuns the VM. It triggers a live migration and remounts it with the new PVC. So it's I think it's really cool. Yes, it is. It does do a host copy operation. I don't know the precise. I don't know the precise SCSI command or anything like that on the back end. I would have to defer to either the product management team or the partner team in order to determine, like, what, if any, work we're doing with our storage partners in order to make that successful. From a storage standpoint, OpenShift virtualization uses PVC paradigm, so CSI, in order to do things like clones and snapshots. So we're at the mercy of what CSI and the vendor CSI drivers surface up. And CSI itself doesn't understand a clone across storage classes. It can clone a PVC within the same storage class, but not between them. So for now, at least, and I can only assume that we're doing work upstream and or with our partners upstream, for now at least, it does do a copy operation. I hope that there's offload for that. I have a call this afternoon with several of the relevant people in this on this topic, and I will be sure to bring that up and see what the latest news is. So don't hesitate to reach out. You can see my email address on the screen, sully@redhat.com, SULLY. Don't hesitate to reach out with your question. I'll see if I can get an answer. Usually, because it's something that'll be heavily dependent on the partners. Sharing roadmap things is hard. Not everybody has an open roadmap like Red Hat does, and I can't share partner roadmap things. With that being said, I've officially run out of things to talk about. My hands are freezing. I can barely type anymore. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We greatly appreciate all of the questions. Please keep them coming while I'm talking. I see RHope9 just sent something to you, Jonny. Why is it not in speaker deck? Actually, it should be there now. Oh no, the what's new just happened Monday. It typically takes a couple of days for them to get that stuff updated. What was I saying? Thank you, everybody, for joining us. So I know a lot of folks don't watch us live, so we leave our email addresses up here the whole time, specifically so that you can send us a message at any time. If you're listening to us as though we're a podcast, if you are not watching us live, if you're watching us after the fact, don't hesitate to reach out. We love to get emails from y'all. Sometimes we're a little slow to respond. As Jonny said, we're both in email jail, but I promise we do eventually get there. That being said, don't hesitate to be noisy. Please be a squeaky wheel. Jonny loves email. The more email, the happier he is. He doesn't know it, but we pay him by the email. So.
It's true.
So, yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out. And that includes not just if you have questions, if you have topic requests. If there's something you'd like us to talk about, we are very happy to do that. And that includes not just listening to us two yahoos, run our mouths, but also finding the actual subject matter experts and or product owners, product management team, engineering team. We love when the engineers come on because they're always super knowledgeable, and I always learn. Product management comes on and it's like, oh yeah, really cool. We're doing these types of things and enabling these use cases. And the engineers come on and it's like, I did not know the product could do that. Like, tell me how that works. And they love diving down into those things. So,
yeah, let's check this out.
Yeah, I know, Johnny, you and I have been talking on the back end about getting some of the UDN folks to come on and talk to us. So for anybody who may have seen that slide, it was in both the What's New in 418, the What's Next, as well as I think What's New in 417, because it was tech preview then, if I remember correctly. So UDN is short for user defined networks. So this is effectively, you can go in and create isolated networks for your pods or virtual machines where they can talk to each other across layer 3 networks, with full isolation happening inside of there. And that includes with 418, I think we're adding BGP support with containerized workload. So effectively, you go to your networking team and say, hey, give me a BGP AS and, a /16 or a /14 or whatever. And you hand that over to OpenShift. And when OpenShift spins up a pod on that UDN, it gets a public IP address and the BGP routes are updated and external access directly to that pod if you so choose. And then I don't know if it's coming in 4.18 initially, but somewhere on the roadmap is the ability to do that with virtual machines as well. So I have virtual machines. I put them on a UDN that's BGP enabled with that whatever that IP address scheme is, and I put my VM on there, and that IP address follows the VM around. It's publicly accessible. It's publicly published. I say public here, meaning like inside your organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Missed the next version next half year, and rather not nailed down yet. Presentation roadmaps. Yeah. So the What's Next sessions happen every 6 months now. So I want to say the last one was back in early December, if I remember correctly. So
yeah, I think it was like right after Thanksgiving break, right before the Christmas break. So
yeah, I don't remember when Summit is this year. I think Summit is in late May.
Yeah,
so
it's like 17th, something like that. Right.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the next What's Next, the next roadmap session get pushed out into June as a result of that, because Summit, as you can imagine, consumes a lot of everybody's time and resources. Yeah, correct. Yep. RHOPE 9. Yeah. Extend networks that allows you to more easily migrate workload into virtualization. That's definitely one of the big ones. UDN and the whole BGP thing is also important in telco and other networking centric use cases. So it was very serendipitous that virtual machines can also take advantage of it, but really the networking folks were driving towards it for telco use cases.
Yeah.
And yeah, we really, Mark Curry and Frank Bawden are the two PMs behind that, and they're both brilliant and can talk about these things ad nauseum and at crazy depth. So we should definitely have at least one of them on.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay. I've never seen it do that before. Did you see it? It switched over to a clock for a minute.
Oh, no, I didn't even see it. Yeah.
It was an incorrect clock at that. It said 127, and it is not 127. Anyways, so I have nothing else. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Johnny, any parting thoughts?
Again, just thank you for all the conversation. It was a great way to get back into the saddle, and looking forward to hopefully getting the stream back under control and schedules and stuff like that. So it's gonna be an awesome year.
Yeah. What do you got, a day job to do, Johnny? Come on.
I know. It's only out of the 24 hours a day. I'm using as many as I can. So.
You can sleep when you're dead. You'll be all right.
It's true. It's also
Yeah.
true.
All right, Jill. Thank you so much. We will see you next week.
See ya.